Hey Sam, there were some Finkelstein comments that you wanted to go over quickly. Do you have them? Do you have them with you?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'll
Yeah.
have
So
them.
these
So,
were. I'll just add the context. These were below a video that we had made before this whole flare-up between Israel Palestine, and it was just only about how Norman Finkelstein was even denied volunteer job as a teacher in Chicago. But yeah, please go ahead.
so we had a commentator, John Lenihan, sorry, and he said that he's abusive to Holocaust survivors, and then you were like, no, I don't think
Yeah,
he's
he said
abusive.
Norman Finkelstein is abusive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I must say, I don't think he's abusive. I think abusive is a very strong word, but I mean his tone. You must agree that his tone and the way he talks to people, he can be very
Sure. Yeah.
uh, assertive, let's say. I love it. I personally love it. I think like Christopher Hitchens, Norman Finkelstein, Chris Hedges to a lesser extent,
Yeah.
all these people are very assertive in their arguments and very. But I love it. But you can't deny that it's somewhat like he like
Abusive. I think it's just the term abusive that threw me off with his
sure.
comment. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think abusive is, yeah, that's something you use for when somebody's insulting you. And I don't
Yeah.
think he ever goes that far. But then John Lennon, I think he goes on to make an interesting point about the fact that the Jews in in other countries felt somewhat uh, short, short drifted for because all the focus has been on the Israel and all that. So some of the Holocaust survivors, they don't feel like enough attention has been paid to them, blah blah blah. I think that was an interesting point, but I do think I also made a comment there that I think he has a very one-sided view of the history, and I don't know if he watches this, but if he does, I do think he needs like uh, yeah, I mean the state of Israel, I mean even Benny Morris, the Israeli historian, now right-wing Israeli historian, like new historians, they were a bunch of Israeli historians. I highly recommend looking at their works. State of Israel was built like it was the history of State of Israel is very bloody. Let's say. Let's not get into details. So that was that. And yeah, I agree completely with you. I don't think language, unless you're insulting or threatening someone, I don't think you can. He's been abusive,
And he
but I
also said abusive to his parents. Hold on, I'm
no,
just
not,
reading this.
not
Continue. No.
no. You said that like because his parents are
Oh yeah.
Holocaust survivors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. Sorry.
Yeah, that was you. But okay. Anyway, but more importantly, though, we had a commentator, which I haven't had the time to comment, Anik Shafi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this is correctly or not. Why is the Holocaust given so much attention? Genghis Khan butchered a lot of people, and the victims aren't given any attention. Why are Jews so special? Uh, and why are they given a special preferences? First of all, try not to use Jews as a sort of a thing here whenever like it does come across as very negatively, like people of Jewish faith or anyway. But first, I would say it's very special, the Holocaust, the one committed by the Nazis. First of all, very bad example. Genghis Khan famously was very tolerant of people of different faiths and different races. He was just a conqueror who like he never said, "Oh, Persians, let's kill all these Persians because they're Persians and they're born Persians, or Arabs because they're born Arabs and they're speaking Arabic language, or because they have a specific faith." The Holocaust, which was sort of continuation of pogroms which were happening in Europe all the time, was a systematic, as in like governmental level systematic effort to annihilate a people just because they are born a specific way, not because they chose a specific path, not because they uh, fought for a specific cause, not because they were attacking another group, just because they were born in a specific way, right? Not like I mean, this is disgusting, but not even because let's say eugenics and like we're getting rid of disabled people or stuff, just because we really hate these guys and they're like differently born, we're going to kill them. And there are other examples of this in throughout history, but we've never had such a systematic and such an efficient way of doing this evil act. We've had mob. Every country has had a history of, like in a city, sadly, majority of people suddenly attack a minority group for one reason or another. There's a crime, they blame a minority group, pogroms, mob violence, whatever you want to call it, or even like government putting pressure on minorities, making their life difficult, slowly pushing them out, blah blah blah. But this was crazy. Like they built fucking gas chambers, and
Yeah.
like they came up with the most efficient way, as in the cheapest, as in like what is the cheapest. So I do think it's special because of that. That doesn't diminish suffering of any other group. And I do think it's very different from the case of Genghis Khan or any other conquerors that, like when you start killing people for the way they're born, in my view, that puts you in a different category of evil than when you kill people for ideology, at least. Like, as in, like, like, okay, you don't, I have certain financial interest, and if you don't agree with that, I'm going to kill you. That to me is still better than I'm just going to kill you because you're of a different, group of, like, oh, you were born with this family, so yeah, you should die. So
Yeah.
yeah, to me that is the most disgusting thing that could be there. And by the way, I think Israel gets a lot of attention. And by the way, Holocaust is used, or you could argue abused or misused for a lot of things, but it's not getting, like as Finkelstein points out in his interview with Katie Alper, a lot of Holocaust survivors they didn't get much, out of the funds that were supposed to go to the victims.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry,
No.
just, yeah, I wanted to clarify that.
No, I'm glad that you addressed, yeah, that comment very nicely. And then, yeah, I don't even know. You know me, my history. So I don't even know who Genghis Khan is. But yeah, I'm
Genghis
glad.
Khan. I'm sure you know by the Iranian, no, Changiz. It's a very common Iranian name, man.
I've heard
He
of the
gets,
name. Like the name doesn't
yeah,
sound strange, but I don't know.
but but he's a story. By the way, Genghis Khan, one of the most famous victim of his killings was Iran, was the Khorasan region of Iran, Iran and Afghanistan region. He, yeah, he's very famous. His story of conquering Iran is very very famous. So I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm very surprised.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't be surprised by now. You
Yeah.
remember the other day I didn't know that Mother Teresa was a real person.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was